to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Olszewski. And I would just say that the authority for Secretary Rubio to consolidate, reduce, eliminate, it does fall, though you were not here, in a law passed in 2024 appropriations, SFOPS appropriations, section 7063, where you can expand, eliminate, consolidate, downsize, cover department and agencies, expand or reduce the size of permanent civil service, foreign service, the list goes on and on. And again, I would also remind everybody that all but 3 Democrats voted for that, that are on this committee that were here at the time. And I now recognize Representative Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as many of my colleagues previously mentioned, the U.S. Agency on International Development is in dire need of reform. And the chairman has already done an excellent job highlighting some of the wasteful and burden that has burdened the American taxpayer, both in this hearing and on YouTube. Yet, when we talk about how USAID betrayed the American people, it's also important to recognize some of the good USAID has accomplished, when done right. Being from Indo-Pacific, I know the critical role that U.S. foreign aid has played in disaster response. As an example, when done right, USAID has provided much.
Real quick, breaking news whenever it feels like breaking. Breaking news whenever it feels like breaking. RFK has been confirmed as the Health and Human Services Secretary by a vote of 52 to 48. Shout out to RFK. Let's see what he does. They keep talking about the Ebola in this fucking in this hearing that we're watching right now. They keep talking about the Ebola and all this other stuff. Let's lead up to the Department of Health and Human Services, not USAID. But I digress. Let's get back to this. Let's get back to the circus.
Needed humanitarian assistance to Japan after the 2011 Fukushima disaster. Specifically, USAID deployed its disaster assistance response team to Japan for almost 2 months. With many similar examples elsewhere, USAID's track record in disaster assistance has proven to be a positive force when done right. As an alumni, I can also speak on the incredible partnership USAID provides to the University of Guam and other academic institutions by offering internships, fellowships, and grant opportunities. And when done right, USAID
a quote unquote
has made it possible for the U.S. to connect with other nations.
Here talking, right? These 3 guys they got before Congress.
Level.
They need
as
to
we
question
look at America's diplomatic
the actual employees, the people who have been in charge of USAID for the past few years, and have them answer what's been found so far.
Make USAID's wasteful programs all the more heartbreaking. For every stride the agency has made to prevent disease,
that sounds like you're crying a little bit.
They fund
what's
drag
up? I love catch up. Where you been?
For every country they have helped after disasters, they fund DEI seminars. My hope is that Secretary Rubio maintains what works, but hopefully it's clear that USAID needs to change. Dr. Yoho, your previous foreign affairs legislation highlighted the strong relationships between the U.S. and partner nations in Pacific and Asia. Where do you think USAID succeeded in this region, and where do you think it needs to improve?
I think where it's succeeded, there's multiple examples of that. You look at the work they've done with organizations like CEPI or in the food programs and the educational programs like you brought up. Those create goodwill that make us stronger. Programs like we've heard talked about today drives nations away from us, and if they drive them away, it makes us weaker. So we need to focus on those. I work a lot in the agricultural sector.
I agree with that,
my whole life as a veterinarian. And working on food security and taking that knowledge and going into the island nations, or whether it's in Africa, wherever it is, teaching them our best practices that we've learned, and then teaming up with aid, USAID, to carry these out and then wean these countries off. It creates trading partners. It just makes us stronger in the end. And it creates that relationship that we have that's going to make us both more secure.
Thank you. For Mr. Pomerak, your contribution to Project 2025 focuses on foreign assistance role to counter PRC efforts. Now, despite the fraud, waste, and abuse, the programs that work in USAID are incredibly diplomatic tool. How do you think we can maintain necessary USAID programs like disaster response, health, and economic growth while trimming this mismanagement?
Thank you. Actually, when I was leading the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, I had to deal with many disaster responses, and we did it quite well. We also had a very good and robust counter China framework there. Unfortunately, the next administration just tore it all down. I think when we're talking about how do we prevent losing the good by taking away the bad, that we have to regain the trust of the American people. And right now, the more they learn, the more they're distrustful. That's why I think this review, this pause and review, is very important so that the American people can feel
He's right.
that, no, all of this bad stuff is gone.
Thank you.
Now, what he's saying, right, he's 100% right on that. See, people want to they don't want to acknowledge that part. This is a pause and review, a 90-day pause and review. This doesn't mean that Trump's going to get rid of everything that's good with USAID, right? Whatever it is that's good with USAID, whatever he deems, all right, this is beneficial to whatever, right? But it is necessary to stop the funding. It's necessary to stop all this shit that's going on right now just so you can get a look at it, what's really happening. You can't allow the corruption. You can't allow the money to keep fucking flying out the window when you're trying to like cut the pork or cut back the trim the fat. You know what I mean? You gotta stop the fucking. You gotta turn the faucet off. Look at what's going on. Okay, this is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, this I can understand that. This shit is batshit crazy. Okay, I can understand this thing here, and then you proceed accordingly. But these Democrats, especially the ones up on these podiums, is out here screaming at the top of their lungs. They don't want that transparency. Question is why. But you know what they say? A hit dog gonna holler.
Thank you. And for my final question, Mr. Natsios, if you can, could you please explain some of the challenges associated with the Pacific and Asia time during your tenure, please?
Well, China was not as big a threat when I was in office. In fact, Hu Jintao was very helpful in getting the Sudanese government to be responsible because President Bush called him and asked him. And China was liberalizing then, and that's been reversed by Xi Jinping. I think Xi Jinping, I shouldn't say this, but is a disaster for China. I think Hu Jintao, if they followed the route he was taking, China would not be what it's doing now, and I think it's really sad. The Asian countries feel very threatened. I was just in Bangkok, I think it was in October, and we talked to, my delegation talked to a prominent political scientist, and this is what he said. And there were Chinese in the room when he said it. He said, "We love America, we love freedom, but you're unreliable. You come in, you come out, you leave, we can't predict what you're doing."
Thank you very much.
And the Chinese are always here.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Moreland. Chair now recognizes Representative Jackson.
Thank you much, Chairman. I think it's important to hear the voices of employees directly impacted by this administration's effort to dismantle USAID. One foreign service member recently filed a declaration declaring how the chaos created by these abrupt actions of USAID being shut down jeopardized his and his family's safety during the recent evacuation from the DRC. I ask unanimous consent that his account be entered into the record book, Mr. Chairman. It's a harrowing account of we've left our employees abroad stranded because of the rashness of this decision. I have this entered into the record, Chairman.
I'm just going to assume this isn't the John Lovell
Mr.
from the Warrior
Primark,
Poet Society.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Yayo and Natasha, for coming out today. Mr. Primark, You've written extensively in Project 2025 about your critique of USAID. May I ask you, do you work with any of the members of DOGE or DOGE? How do you pronounce the name of the committee?
You know how to fucking pronounce
No,
it,
not
you
at all.
clown.
No communication with
This is people that you
Do you
can't
know the
fucking take serious
pronunciation of
right
that
here.
organization?
I just
He's
call
annoying.
it DOGE like others do.
Okay. Is it a private firm or is it a government entity?
It's a government entity, and the people working for it are government approved.
It was formed by who?
The President of the United States.
And how is it funded?
I understand that most are working for free, but any other costs are going to be covered by the U.S. government.
If they're working for free, who's paying them? Are they employees of Mr. Musk?
I have no idea.
Okay, I just know that you have an extremely close working relationship with the organization. And how many years have you worked in foreign affairs? And in
They ain't
foreign
had
aid?
these questions about CrowdStrike. They ain't had none of these
35
questions about
years, different
CrowdStrike.
capacities from NGOs as a contractor, State Department, working for the office of or for the Vice President, and also directly with USAID.
Thank you. Is there anything that a 19-year-old could tell you about USAID that you don't understand?
Is that good?
From your years of experience?
My understanding is that they're technical staff.
Can any of those 19-year-olds teach you something that you don't understand about USAID?
In terms of anything to do with data overview and looking at things, I'm just clueless, sorry.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I think it, and for the record, I'd like it to be clear that you and I would probably have a difference of opinion on what diversity means. In this African American History Month, Mr. Frederick Douglass had written an article and a speech regarding composite nation, that this is a land of many different cultures, races, ethnicities.
How did he get his
that have all
job?
come to call this
How
great
did he get
land
his job?
home. And if we're looking at the future of Africa in the year 2050, being 1 in 4 human beings on Earth, that there should be a push for cultural diversity, expanding how we reach out to people. And so when we talk about America and USAID
started it,
betrayal, I'd like to put
I
the
haven't
eye
finished
on
it yet.
DOGE. Not one member on this panel has had anything to say or do with the cuts of food. And let it also be entered into the record at this moment, the irony of the richest man on earth taking food away from the poorest humans on this earth.
How'd he
Let
get
it
his
also
job?
be
Can anybody tell
entered
me
into the
how
record
he
that the
got
most
his
powerful
job?
man on
Matter of
earth
fact, what
is
state
denying
is he
food
from?
assistance, medical assistance, malaria vaccinations to the poorest people on earth. We don't need to operate in this chaotic manner. I would like to ask Mr. Natsios, how should this project work? How should we be convened today that would make this more productive?
Sorry. This is a more radical proposal, but I had proposed this in Foreign Affairs some years ago. I think we need to consolidate the MCC, the DFC, AID, and a couple of the foreign aid parts of the State Department into one department and raise the visibility and integrate the programs more. I don't think, for example, there be a
doesn't care about
representative
the
for
US
the DFC and the MCC in each country that they work in. They can have the aid mission do that. They could be an integrated mission for all of these purposes. There are countries where there's CDC and AID running the same program, PEPFAR. It's never been corrected. Frankly, they fight with each other. It's embarrassing and it's duplicative, and there's no need for it. I think they should put one agency in charge of the whole thing, and that's it. That's what happened with the malaria program, and it's worked very well. The third thing I would do is decentralize. Now, with what's going on now, no one will agree to this, but the literature on bureaucratic processes, James Q. Wilson, my favorite writer, who's, by the way, a conservative, he says decentralize every administrative function at the lowest level where people have knowledge of what's going on. You have to have oversight in Washington. But AID during the Cold War was the most decentralized agency, and it drove the Russians crazy because the mission directors and the ambassadors could be responsive to the local president and the local prime minister, and that's one of the reasons we won the Cold War. We helped win the Cold War through AID because we were highly decentralized and very responsive. Right now, there are 275 earmarks in AID. We tell the country what, because we don't have any choice. The whole budget,
Gentleman's
there's no
time has
flexibility
expired.
in the budget.
Yo, he was cooking. He was a former administrator. He was cooking. His name Andrew Nasios or something like that. He's right. Exactly, Purple Soul. Consolidate all these agencies that's supposedly doing the same shit. You consolidate them all one agency and you decentralize the agency. Kind of sound like what Trump trying to do. It kind of sound like what Trump trying to do. What's the problem with that? You got this dickhead that was just up here talking about, it's Black History Month and African countries and blah, 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 blah. Ain't say shit about the American citizens that struggle because they don't give a fuck. I do agree with that, Barton. Just like we kind of robbed our way out of World War II, but I digress. But that's a fucking fantastic idea, in my opinion. I hope Trump watching and Trump go to this dude like, yo, I need your help. I need you over here real quick, yo. I need you over here real quick. He seems very fucking level-headed. That's a good plan. And he's been consistent the entire hearing. This gentleman right here has been consistent the entire hearing. He not getting all caught up in the politics of it all. He not beholden to one side. He on the up and up. He being true to it. Salute to him, yo. I wanted to hear him talk some more. What's the plan? Trump, I hope you see this dude talking, and I hope you go holler at him, yo.
Thank you, gentlemen, and I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. I would wonder how many transgender operas they funded during the Cold War. Probably not many. Chair now recognizes Representative.
Now, he got a point, too, because like I said earlier before I had to get off the stream, most of these agencies probably started with good intentions. When USAID probably came into being, it probably had the noblest of intentions, and it probably did exactly what it was supposed to do. But just like everything, just like the FBI, just like the ATF, just like the CIA, all these places, they all get corrupted. They all get co-opted. They all get infiltrated, and the mission changes. That's what happens. Maybe USA started out noble, but somewhere along the line it got infiltrated, and now this shit is just is a problem that needs to be rectified.
Representative Biggs from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your efforts in organizing this important hearing, and thank you to our witnesses for your testimonies
That's
today.
a possibility too, Josh.
So today's hearing has provided a target-rich environment of examples of funding allocations that, while perhaps they were intended for worthy causes, in my opinion, they raise serious questions about our priorities and where our focus truly lies. These include, and we've mentioned many, but just to name a couple others, $3.3 million for being LGBTQ in the Caribbean, and $37.6 million for sex workers, their clients, and transgender individuals in South Africa. While I acknowledge the complex global changes USAID seeks to address, we must ask a fundamental question. Are we truly fulfilling our responsibility to the American people when we allocate tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for programs abroad, while neglecting critical, and yes, I said critical needs right here at home, just like districts in South Carolina's 3rd District, which I represent? I struggle to explain to veterans in Newberry County who's fighting to find a job why our resources are directed overseas to programs that don't enhance our national security instead of supporting his career prospects. We've mentioned health care. I watched a veteran with his face in his hands sobbing because he couldn't get health care needs met. We've talked about the mental health needs that he couldn't get met. And he said to me, I feel like I'm a hamster in a wheel. I can't get out of the process. I find it difficult to justify to families in Greenwood that are facing mounting medical bills while resources are being spent on programs abroad, when those funds could expand access to vital health care services in their own community. I question how we can prioritize funding initiatives overseas, when we have cybersecurity vulnerabilities in Anderson County that threaten local businesses and critical infrastructure. For those of us who are guided by Christian values, the principle of charity begins at home. It resonates strongly with me. While we are called to care for all of God's children, there is also a natural and an understandable inclination to prioritize the needs of our immediate community, our fellow citizens, and those within our own nation. Let me be very clear. This is not about abandoning our global responsibilities. It's about investing in the very foundation of our nation, our communities, our families, and our future. It's about ensuring that the hardworking people of South Carolina's 3rd District and all across the nation are not left behind while resources are directed to woke programs that do not advance American interest. So my question to our witnesses is very simple. What went wrong, and why did the oversight measures fail to prevent taxpayer money from being spent on wasteful programs that don't put America first?
Accountability and transparency, and it's this body, and I was a part of this body, we didn't do our job, is what I feel. The American people sent us up here to do something. We hear the IG reports, this person that got fired, he got fired, he was the IG, made a report, gets fired. There's an IG report every year. We don't act, and if we don't act, this is what happens. We complain about everything that's bad, and then we don't act, and then when somebody like Trump comes in, and there'll be somebody after that. And when they come in and they do this, we get upset. We've got to fix Congress. That's why people send us here.
I would also add that what I've seen over the past 25 years is the progressive left has gradually just seized control over the entire foreign aid industrial complex.
See, a Republican.
And that's something the political sociology of the industry has to be changed. If we're not, otherwise we're going to have this same vicious circle occur again and again.
Thank you.
Just let me add, there is a large number of Mormons at AID. I've never met a communist Mormon before. There aren't any that I know of. I don't theologically agree with them, but I have great respect for the Mormons. There's a very large number of practicing Catholics in AID and evangelicals. And there's a large number, as I said earlier today, of missionary kids who were, why? Because they speak the languages of the countries they were brought up in. And they make wonderful foreign service officers, and many of them have risen to the senior levels of the agency. Is there a contingent of younger, very liberal? Yes, there are, but it's very mixed. And my experience in the agency, maybe it's changed, is that when you ask officers to do something, they do it. I didn't used to have to ask their backgrounds. I just said, I want this done. And if they didn't do it, I would take action. I actually fired 16 senior people when I was in office.
Thank you, Mr.
3 of them were
Natchez.
political.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Even if they're Catholic, if they're doing LGBTQ musicals in Ireland, their time is coming to an end. The chair now recognizes Representative Connolly.
Thank you. And Ted, welcome back. It's good to see you. Mr. Natchez, when you were an administrator, did you oversee an agency that was rife with LGBTQ dances in Ireland and, I don't know, condoms to the tune of $2 million in Gaza and all kinds of iffy, marginal, flaky projects that were funded with U.S. taxpayer money, bringing dishonor to the United States of America? Would that be a fair characterization of AID from your point of view?
Well, it certainly wasn't when I was there. And I don't think it is now myself, but I do think there are programs that I saw on the list that I would not have allowed in my
Well, let's
agency.
stipulate that, but let's not let that characterize AID, because all of us are losers if that succeeds, it seems to me. Global health. What percentage of AID's work would fall under the rubric of global health?
All right, let's see what happened, because the stream's still running, so I'm not sure what the deal is, why I just started buffering. Uncle Hotep started buffering this morning like this too.
Percentage of AID's work would fall under the rubric of global health?
There we go. What is going on? It's Fox's shit. What's this?
When you were a administrator,
Let's go with this one.
did you
Yo, what is the deal? Oh, because they pull them from Fox. So let's see if C-SPAN got it. Let's see what you got going on C-SPAN.
Democracy.
I don't think they got shit going on for real. Tulsi got confirmed. RFK got confirmed. Let's see. Let's put USAID hearing. Uh-oh, too much truth. No, it ain't. It's not me. They not fucking. They fucking with the feed from Fox. Wonder why. All right, here we go. Is this the same shit?
Time, these policies.
All right, let's go with AP.
I ponder that. And if you look at, we'll just take the
Let's go
JCPOA
back
and
a
Paris
little
Climate
bit.
Accord.
Let's go back.
It wasn't when I was there. And I don't think it is now myself, but I do think there are programs that I saw on the list that I would not have allowed in my agency.
Well, let's stipulate that, but let's not let that characterize AID, because
Come on, yo, don't
all
cut
of
them
us are
off.
losers if that succeeds, it seems to me. Global health. What percentage of AID's work would fall under the rubric of global health? Fighting disease, child maternal.
That's interesting. I didn't realize
healthcare,
that.
or rehydration projects, on and on. Polio,
$8 billion.
schistosomiasis. What's that?
$8 billion
$8 billion out of 40?
out of $38 billion last
Out of
year.
38. So big chunk. What about food security and nutrition
The
programs?
emergency response part of aid is now by far the largest. It's $15 billion. It just amazes me because it's so much more that I had when I was in office.
So 23 of the 38 billion is just those two categories.
That is correct.
And those aren't fringe projects. Those are really life-saving projects.
Yes, they
Is that
are.
fair characterization?
Yes.
And what about disaster relief?
Well, the 15 billion is the food security. Food security for me is the emergency side. Agriculture is separate from that, and that's what I think you're talking about in the longer term development.
Yeah,
side.
correct
But
that
when we're
nigga,
talking
yo.
about disaster assistance, we're not only talking food.
No.
For example, my fire department is part of a FEMA AID relationship
Right.
where they can go to trouble spots overseas and, again, try to save lives.
Right. I don't know what part of the 15 billion is food versus what we call non-food assistance, which is usually emergency medical care and public health, like immunizing kids in refugee camps and that kind of thing.
So-
I don't know the breakdown.
So let's say one were sincere about wanting to clean up marginal, fringy projects that should never have been funded. Is the way to do that to basically announce we're going to fire 10,000 employees and leave 239 left?
It is not.
And what would be the consequences of depopulating the agency to the tune of 10,000 out of 10,239 employees?
My experience, I've run 7 institutions in the last 50 years now. The 8 officers that I work with were among the smartest and the best managers that I've worked with.
That's a
And
good
the most
question.
creative,
So
because the circumstances they deal with in the development world are very challenging. I think losing career people is like losing the cadre of the military officers. It's a disaster for the United States.
And the chairman seems to be under the impression that the appropriations bill provides blanket authority to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. I beg to differ. My view is that ultimately AID was established by statute in the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 as a
this is my issue with this whole situation. Right? Like I said, a hit dog on holler, right? None of them are addressing the malfeasance found by DOGE. None of them are addressing the malfeasance found by DOGE. They're justifying why USAID should be there, but they're not addressing the fucking misappropriation of funds and all of that crazy shit, the corruption inside of the agency. This should be a bipartisan thing. But as you hear them up here on this committee asking their questions, you can tell who get a few dollars from USAID, some kickbacks, right? Right? Because trust and believe, it's not the grants that's given out, right? Well, it's the grants that's given out. But who else is getting a couple of dollars on the back end of those grants? Like, think about what I'm saying. Let's just say, I don't know, I want a grant to find out why fucking grass is green, right? And I go to apply for this grant, and one of the Congress persons, they be like, okay, I can get this passed for $1 million. Just make sure you send me a little 10% for my coffers. Send me a little 10% for my my re-election fund. You get what I'm saying? Who else has got their money or their hand in the cookie jar when it comes to these grants and this money being given out? Because it ain't just them handing money over to a foreign government to do some shit with it. No. No, it never works like that. There's always 10% for the big guy.
amended. And if you want to dismantle or fold it into another organization, you must get statutory authority from the United States Congress, and we certainly will fight that out. Final point, Mr. Natsios, and maybe Ted Yoho, you may want to comment as well.
So what you saying, Steve S. Smith? There are no misappropriations. It's all fringe projects. So fringe projects makes it seem a little more palatable than saying misappropriations. Is that what you're saying?
I'm worried about the vacuum being created by these actions, that China is going to waltz right in there. They're already big actors. Now we, the United States, are going to make them even more so, and I struggle to see how that's in an American interest. Why don't you comment?
Oh, we got a mask in the background.
It's going to drive people closer to China, Russia, the adversaries, and we see this.
What up, Don?
But I saw that before, too, with the programs. I had one of the past presidents of Ghana say that if we want aid, but if we have one party from the United States in power, they have a short list. If we have another one, it's a long list. He goes, if we go to China, they say, here's your money. But they said this: I would rather do business with the United States. That's something that we can take advantage, and we need to focus on those things, because that makes us stronger, safer, and more prosperous. Not just here, but in those other countries. We need to get back to the basic mission here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Connolly. Gentleman from New Jersey, Representative Kane is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to our witnesses for being here today. America is spending $40 billion in foreign aid, yet much of that money never reaches the intended recipients. Instead, it gets caught up in bureaucratic inefficiencies and organizations that have not always been transparent with the American taxpayer. A USAID report published in June of 2023 under the Biden administration noted that just 1 out of every $10 reaches the actual people in need abroad. A recent study by the Middle East Forum revealed that USAID awarded $164 million in taxpayer funds to extremist organizations, including $122 million to groups linked to designated terrorist entities. I believe that my colleagues here would agree that this reckless spending has drifted from American interests and instead has benefited foreign interests. It is time that we commit to cutting waste, fraud, and abuse in government funding on programs and initiatives that do not align with American values. American people deserve to know where and how the money is being spent and how they align with the U.S. interest. Mr. Yoho, should this reorganization include a comprehensive forensic audit of USAID spending over the past 4 years, how should this audit identify waste, fraud, corruption, and programs that may have undermined U.S. foreign policy objectives?
Absolutely, but I mean, you could go back years. But it's a great opportunity for bipartisan leadership conducing oversight and defining the priorities and the parameters of future USAID assistance programs. That leads to the certainty that where we're not wavering. It creates continuity in our programs, and it makes us stronger.
Yeah, as you were just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it must be done in a bipartisan effort. If not, it'll go away with it when tides change.
Well, as you had just said in your previous answer to another question, you're right. The best policies here and abroad are consistent over administrations.
Sure.
They are transparent with the American people as well as people looking from abroad. And so having that bipartisan strategy and consistency is extraordinarily important. What are ways you think that we can ensure that they are consistent over time, these policies?
I ponder that. And if you look at, we'll just take the JCPOA and the Paris Climate Accord. President Obama put us in both. President Trump took us out of both. President Biden put us back in both. President Trump takes us out. Stand on the sidelines as another nation looking in at America. They're like, these people don't know what they're doing. We have no confidence that we're exuding. Congress, I think, can direct it as this is the policy of the United States of America and give leeway to the executive branch in times of emergencies. But if we don't have a policy of the United States versus a Democratic Party or a Republican policy, and that's the spoils of winning an election, but they should also focus on what's best for America instead of what's best for a party. And until we do that, we're going to go back and forth on this, and it's up to us and, of course, the American people.
And so how would you, if you were structuring this legislatively and making sure it's bipartisan solutions that's consistent over time, how would you structure that under your best vision?
I think it's just getting consensus and building a bipartisan movement in this, and you've got a great opportunity. You've got this Congress has an opportunity you haven't had in over 40 years with the Supreme Court ruling on the Chevron deference case. The Chevron deference, when that came into effect, allowed the administrative agencies to have all this power. All right, that's been repealed. Congress can go ahead and move forward and say this is what an agency may do. This is what they shall not do. And if we don't do that in a bipartisan way, it's going to go right back to these agencies, and Congress has allowed their powers to be usurped again by administrative agencies.
But that's the thing. It'll never be done because too many people on the take. You think this is really going to get bipartisan support? Right? It's too many people on the take on both sides of the aisle. It's too many people on the take.
Entities that are hostile.
That's them voting That's them voting against their best interest.
Of what you want, and then you have to have that oversight, as Mr. Nazio brought up. You got to approve these things, and you have to have it done now. And I think there should be an immediate review after this stuff. You know, with every when you send out a check, you want to get it back. The IRS makes us do that and be accountable for our taxes, and I think we should do the same thing in government programs.
Thank you, Mr. Yoho. I yield back my time.
Could I just add one thing in terms of a suggestion?
Gentleman's time has expired, so maybe in another round. Thank you. Thank the gentleman from New Jersey. Representative McBride.
Tell us Savalas up here. He ain't playing.
Thank you, Chairman Mass. It's a privilege to serve on this committee with you and Ranking Member Meeks. It's Also an honor to be here for my first Foreign Affairs Committee hearing. I am looking
where the fuck
forward
is
to working
everybody else?
alongside each and every one of you in a bipartisan manner in support of U.S. interests. Unfortunately, right now, we are seeing a partisan attack on USAID, one of the most effective tools of American leadership and our national security. By gutting this agency, President Trump is not just turning his back on our global commitments. He's undermining American interests.
You read
and
my
our
mind,
security.
though. You read my
And he is causing unnecessary deaths.
I wasn't going to say it,
If
though.
President Trump can get away with gutting USAID, he can do it anywhere. That means that no part of the federal government, including programs like Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid, will be safe from this administration. The president and the majority conference.
Real quick. No, I want them to investigate Medicare and Medicaid. I want that investigated. I want that investigated specifically, especially because I'm not getting that shit when I turn 65. When it's time for me to retire, I don't get that shit. They saying that it's insolvent. Why is it? Why are people that's 150 plus still getting Social Security? Where's the Social Security fraud coming from? Where's that money going? I still pay into that system that I'm not going to be able to take advantage of. Like, I need to know. I want to know, and I think every American citizen should want to know where your money is going when you pay for taxes, because Medicaid and Medicare is one of them. Social Security is one of the main ones. And you're telling us we still got to pay that shit and we don't get to use it when we get to the age where we can retire? I need to know why. I need to know why.
In this House are fostering opposition to vital government programs by mischaracterizing diversity efforts and using it as a Trojan horse to gut programs that all Americans rely on. This hearing is titled USAID Betrayal, but let's be clear, the real betrayal is that Donald Trump promised to lower costs facing families, but instead is pursuing policies that threaten American jobs.
We're all wondering
and
that,
increase
Ray.
cost. Foreign aid
Medicaid,
is not a
that's
charity.
Not me.
It's an investment in stability, security, global health, economic security, American leadership, and American jobs. USAID buys food from farmers in Delaware to help prevent famine and conflict abroad. USAID funds over $1 million of critical research at the University of Delaware on both energy and poultry production. USAID collaborates with Delaware's businesses to expand agriculture in places like Ukraine. These cuts, this effort to decimate USAID, doesn't just hurt people in distant countries, it hurts Delawareans. And so my first question for you, Mr. Natsios, I want to talk about everyone's favorite topic. It may have come up already, egg prices. One reason for rising costs is the spread of bird flu. Yet this administration has stopped monitoring bird flu in 49 countries, increasing the risk of it spreading to the U.S. and decimating our poultry industry.
They've been trying to make bird flu a thing since 2021. It's been around for quite a while, but they're trying to really make this shit a thing since 2021. I got videos on my channel all over the place about this shit. You cannot, the views and opinions expressed here on Canon Hotep YouTube channel do not express the views of YouTube or Alphabet Inc. Viewer discretion is advised. What we call it, the dirty bird. You cannot catch the dirty bird from cooked meat. You cannot catch the dirty bird from cooked meat. You cannot catch the dirty bird from cooked eggs. If you handle the bird properly, you don't get sick. If you're afraid of it, you wear a fucking mask over your face. I'm pretty sure they gotta cover their face anyway at the plants. You gotta wear gloves anyway at the plants, the processing plants. You gotta wear hair nets and shit anyway at the fucking process. You gotta dress like a goddamn surgeon when you're handling them at the fucking plant. When the shit gets to your house, you cook the shit, and guess what? You ain't catching it. That's a fucking thing. This whole dirty bird shit It's just another way for them to try to fuck up the supply chain and throw some more money old what's his name? Old Bill Gates way. Shit is crazy, yo. This shit is crazy. Let me see if I can't find it real quick. Hold tight. The screenshot I tried to show you the other day. Let me see. Excuse me. All right, not do it. Let me let it keep playing.
A cornerstone of Delaware's economy. With USAID halting its efforts on bird flu, I'm curious what you believe could be the impact on egg prices and also, of course, the health of Americans.
Well, I have said before that I think the 80 USAID missions that used to exist are our frontline defense for infectious disease generally, and I'm now convinced by Dr. Yoho that we should add in animal disease, zoonotic diseases, not that have jumped to humans, although that's a huge problem, but just that are in the animal kingdom because it affects our domesticated population of animals in the United States, whose food supply is critical to our health in the United States. So, and I might add to the developing world as well. We have had some very successful programs over the years to eliminate these zoonotic diseases in Africa and Central America, Mexico, and I think we should revive those. I know when Bush was president that they monitored all birds dying in Alaska because there's billions of birds, and we used to test them for virus. No, I didn't, but I think USDA tested them for viruses to see if bird flu was in the flocks, and then try to take action. So I think early warning systems in all areas are extremely important so we can do preparedness work.
This is just to answer your question. There you go. I'm just going to put that right there. And there we go. Where'd it go? In 2020, McBride became the first openly transgender person elected as state senator in the United States. So there's your answer to that. There's your answer to that. So there you go.
To protect the American people.
You ain't fooling nobody.
At the same time, be protecting people in the developing world too.
That's right. One quick question, because we've heard commentary about, quote, fringe programs at USAID. You acknowledge that there are programs at USAID now that you might not have approved in the past. I think we've already seen that there have been most gross mischaracterizations of programs, that there have been outright mistruths said about USAID programs right now, and that many of the sort of...
And then here you go right here. I had to find a screenshot. This is from the CDC. No bird flu, dirty bird infections have been reported. No human dirty bird infections have been reported from proper handling of poultry meat or from eating properly cooked poultry or poultry products. Outbreaks of the dirty bird happen among birds from time to time. So they can miss me with all of that fucking bird flu shit. I ain't gonna stay. You know what? Y'all go ahead and stay away from the fucking poultry section. It's more chicken for me. Those who scream the loudest have the most to lose. Why scream and complain? The bank is closed, but the employees left the money in the in the front door. Yeah, like we just said, a hit dog gonna holler. A hit dog gonna holler, and we hear them hollering.
Sort of most outrageous things that we're hearing turn out not to be accurate. And you led, and I'm running out of time, but you led USAID when PEPFAR was created under President Bush. I'm curious if you believe that there are elements of PEPFAR which have saved 25 million lives globally, that there are elements of PEPFAR that could be mischaracterized
hormones and antibiotics
sound a
that
bit
they grow them
outrageous.
chickens at an alarming rate.
I
I'm
suppose there
concerned
are.
about it. I try to do
I
my
actually
best in
wanted to
sourcing my
include
chicken.
more local input into how they structured and how we structured the program in each country, because it's very standardized.
One
I'm
second,
not
guys. I'll
into
be right
central
back. I'm gonna let y'all
standardization
listen to
in
this
aid
real quick.
programs. I'm a decentralist. I guess I'm a federalist, you'd say, and I believe all development is local, and that we should allow the countries more discretion as to how we structure the PEPFAR program. But I lost that battle 25 years ago, 23 years ago. If it were reauthorized, I'd add a lot more local discretion in terms of structuring the program.
Representative's time has expired. Chair now recognizes Representative Radwagon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Talofa Lava, I want to thank the three of you for testifying today. Congressman Yoho, it's good to see you. I want to thank you for all the good things that you've done in the region. You've been a true friend of the Pacific. In the past 2 weeks, independent Samoa and the Cook Islands have signed deals with the PRC. With Kiribati to the north, independent Samoa to the west, the Cook Islands to our east, my home district of American Samoa is now surrounded on 3 sides by China-friendly nations. I have a couple of questions. During the Trump administration and the Biden administration, the State Department and USAID proposed that USAID take over and manage U.S. economic assistance and federal programs and services to the 3 strategically vital Compact of Free Association allies, namely Palau, Marshall Islands, and Micronesia. We have made sure that was rejected because Congress has been providing all such assistance to those strategic partner island people through Interior Department since 1961, including under COFA since 1986. Now that assistance is appropriated so that Interior continues to actually administer these funds and programs under COFA for the next 20 years at least, and that will continue until Congress changes it. The state and those who have or will be exercising USAID authorities understand that COFA economic assistance is not discretionary grants, but usually agreed to obligations that secure the highest level of strategic interests of the U.S. in the Pacific? Mr. Natsios? Any one of you are free to answer. Turn your mic on, please.
Could you just repeat it? I couldn't quite hear your question.
I'm running out of time now. I don't know whether the chairman will let me roll that back a bit. During the Trump administration and the Biden administration, the State Department and USAID proposed that USAID take over and manage U.S. economic assistance and federal programs and services to the 3 strategically vital Compact of Free Association allies, namely Palau, Marshall Islands, and Micronesia. We made sure that was rejected because Congress has been providing all such assistance to those strategic partner island people through Interior Department since 1961, including under COFA since 1986. Now that assistance is appropriated so that Interior continues to actually administer these funds and programs under COFA for the next 20 years at least, and that'll continue until
You know they got a
Congress
filibuster. They don't want them
changes
to answer the
it.
question.
Does state and those who have or will be exercising USAID authorities understand that COFA economic assistance is not discretionary grants, but usually agreed obligations that secure the highest level of strategic interests of U.S. in the Pacific?
Congresswoman, I don't know a lot about how the program works now, so I don't want to render a judgment. I would have some outside group that all of you agreed to evaluate the Interior program and then
Yeah, I'm telling
ask AID how it might change it, and
Nancy,
then you decide.
Natsios is a fucking,
But I
he a
wouldn't
real one.
dismiss
Thank you.
AID, but if
Thank
you
you,
are
Mr. Nassio.
really devoted to the Interior option, then you keep it.
Thank you. My time is so brief, and You had me repeat a long question.
I'm sorry.
My time is so brief.
Yeah,
You bitch, you
same
just did a
question.
whole
The
dissertation.
compact has worked pretty well, and I think you guys vote on it and you determine your destiny of what you want to do. I would use USAID or whatever entity comes back as a facilitator, but I would certainly engage DFC, MCC to do those structural projects that you need that really boost your economy down there.
Do you think with the reforms for traditional USAID foreign assistance now underway, that the role of agencies like the U.S. government's Development Finance Corporation that was mentioned earlier will become more important as instruments of U.S. foreign relations? Or do DFC and similar agencies that harness private sector investment also need to be reformed? DFC was modeled after the Marshall Plan, which creates jobs in the private sector overseas instead of handing out grants.
Lady,
that can
just
create
ask the
markets for
question.
U.S. exports.
Sure.
So while we're promoting foreign investment in the U.S., should we also be promoting U.S. investment overseas to create jobs back here at home? What direction are we headed in this regard?
It's imperative that we do that. We need to revamp the reauthorization of the DFC. And if you look at
Oh shit, for real?
World War
Hey
II,
yo,
if
send
we
me
did
something
not
on
come
that.
in there with a Marshall Plan or something like that, would Germany, Japan, Vietnam, South Korea, and the other countries that benefited from that, would they be in our top 20 trading partners? And if we didn't do that, who would have been in there to do that? It's either going to be our influence with our values, or it's going to be the other people, and we don't want they're authoritarian, and it'll be a disaster for the world. Liberty and freedom will go away.
Mr. Primorak, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Communist China cannot compete with our private
Liberty
sector.
and
It's
freedom was
massive.
never the
When we
fucking
include
mission.
Our allies in Japan and elsewhere, it's overwhelming. China cannot come close. So DFC as that tool to be able to bring in that kind of capital power, I think is a perfect solution. Thank you.
Mr. Natsios? Oh, Congressman? Do you have anything to add, Mr. Natsios?
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentlelady's time has expired.
Mr.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
I kind of wanted to hear his
we get a
fucking
bathroom break?
rebuttal or whatever.
Can you
two
hold
of
it?
us are 70 plus.
Can you hold it for two individuals or no?
I'm going to remind you that when you're 70.
I ask in seriousness, can you hold it for two individuals or no? If you can't, I'm happy to give you a restroom break. I want you to be able to concentrate on answering to our
This
representatives.
motherfucker must have been a drill
I don't
sergeant
want
in the
anybody
army.
to say you were distracted. So, all right, we will continue. We will muster on once more into the breach, dear friend. Chair now recognizes Representative Luna.
Chairman, for the record, I'd like to submit this letter saying that PEPFAR funding was actually resumed. I know there's been a lot of push saying that the Trump admin had actually cut it, but
So ordered.
thank you. You know, I want to start up by saying initially I think the idea behind USAID was done with a good intention. However, we've come to find out that the agency has indeed, to a certain extent, operated in a rogue capacity. And USAID has absolutely broken the trust with the American people and not been transparent about where our taxpayer dollars are going. There's an individual by the name of Mike Benz. He actually served over at the State Department for a while, and he's been going on to expose a lot of what USAID has been doing, which, being a member of oversight and being on this committee, I wanted to verify and see if he was telling the truth, which, much to my disappointment, he was. And I say that because I'm disappointed that our taxpayer dollars are funding some of these items.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check it out. Thanks, y'all.
Just put this in perspective. In 2021, the Special Operations Command under Mark Milley, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, put out an instruction manual, a vision for 2021 and beyond, that contained instructions and examples on how the military could work with the State Department, Intel Services, and USAID using race riots. Here's examples of some of the instruction manuals here, 1 and 2, in order to destabilize nations. In addition to that, they advocated for setting up job fairs near some of these riots so that disaffected workers could gain employment. Now, as a member of Congress, I ask myself, did anyone in USAID get elected to Congress? How about to a presidency?
That's
when
funny.
you
Who
are
asked me for
acting
receipts
in the
on
shadows and
that
you're
very
destabilizing
situation
nations
she just
using
talked
race
about?
wars to do it, and then advocating that the military does it? In my opinion, not only do you put the future generations that would have to fight in those wars in jeopardy, but at the end of the day, you're operating without any oversight. So I guess the question for you guys is, Mr. Natsios, is that something that you were aware of? Are you aware that that instruction manual is being promoted not just with the military under Milley, but that USAID may be operating in this capacity? Because in my opinion, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of many of my constituents, I don't think that's where our taxpayer dollars need to be going.
Well, I completely agree with you. Personally, I doubt very much that what you've been told is accurate. But let me just tell you.
I'm telling you right now, I brought the receipts, okay? And the reason, I'm not trying to argue with you, but I find this disturbing on so many capacities. And I would like to also just, if I can, sir, Mike Benz, what he's exposing and bringing receipts, I've confirmed it. Thank you for doing that on behalf of the American people, because I understand that when you take on the intelligence agencies, we're also now finding that apparently in this manual that they're also
Natsios. Let him talk.
advocating for social media campaigns, illuminating
I wanna see what he
controversy
think.
to a global audience. I mean, using
I agree with her.
disinformation campaigns. Is this happening here?
100%, but I want to hear what Natsios' rebuttal
I
is.
ask you, who in the agency, what bureau?
I just
what
said you can
office?
actually find that instruction in this manual that Milley
Military
approved.
manual, isn't it?
Yes, but Milley approved it. You have it right here. USAID working with government agencies. I mean,
Yeah, but
this is not.
Wait a second. Did AID say that, or did the military say
Well,
AID
that would be the
should-
question for you, sir.
Well, I don't
mean,
think
these
AID wrote
operations.
that.
Sorry to interrupt you. These operations that are taking place without government oversight, without the authority of the president, without the authority of Congress, real men and women serve and they die because of stuff like this. When you destabilize nations without any oversight, we have to fight those wars. You have our chairman right here that literally risked his life. No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm frustrated. I know it's not necessarily your
But
fault.
I'm telling you,
but
it's
as a head of
nonsense.
agency, that's not.
I'm telling what Ben's told you is nonsense.
That's not nonsense. These are the
They did-
information and
AID
forms. And
didn't write that.
Ben's put this out to the American
AID
people.
did not write that,
Sir, I
Congresswoman.
disagree with you on so many levels, and I appreciate you being here
How do
today
you
because
know
I know
they
this is
wrote
not
it?
easy. How do I know what?
That any person can write AID's name into a manual. It goes on all
Sir,
the time.
they are advocating that the U.S. military
Not
work
the-
with
and not
taxpayer-funded State
AID.
Department USAID funds to destabilize nations. That is
Someone in
unacceptable.
special-
I don't care who wrote it. USAID needs to come down and condemn it. They need to provide oversight to Congress on exactly where our tax dollars are going. And I know I might be at 17 seconds with our time, but sir, I hope that you agree. Can I, yes or no, do you agree that this is wrong? Period.
I
Should
think
this
the
be
military
happening?
should be held accountable. I think it's
And
Yeah, I
should
think-
nonsense.
let him
USAID
talk.
condemn
Let him
it?
talk, Shorty.
Nonsense to
Should
suggest that
USAID
AID
condemn
wrote
it?
that.
Should they condemn it?
The military should.
Should USAID also condemn this?
Of course, we don't
Thank you.
comment. AID
Chairman, I
does
yield
not
my time.
comment on military
Thank
manuals.
you, sir.
Ladies,
It's
time's
none of our
expired.
business.
Since there have been a couple more members that have shown up, and I promise you only two, let's do the 5-minute restroom break. You stand in recess for 5 minutes.
All right, they got a 5-minute recess. So, man, that got spicy at the end. That got spicy. So, I mean, what do you guys think so far? What do you guys think so far? Let me do this. There we go. What do you guys think so far of this hearing? Think we learning anything? Or is this just a pissing contest? Although the three guys, I don't know what you call them, witnesses, I don't know what the fuck you call them, experts up there, they're holding their own. They're doing pretty well. I want to hear from the people that are in power currently at USAID, the current director, the current administrator. I want to hear from them. I want to hear them answer for a lot of the shit that we found out about. That's what I want to hear about. That's the shit I want to hear about. Yeah, Andrew up there doing the thing. Andrew, he got a bias. Andrew has a bias as being the former administrator of USAID, and even he's conceding the fact that there's some nefarious shit happening in there, unlike when he was there, allegedly. He's calling it straight down the middle. The other two are being pretty reasonable as well. However, I feel like they got the wrong people at this hearing. They're the wrong people answering at this hearing. We need to hear from the current management of USAID and ask them about some of the shit that's going on. What's up, Emmanuel? You the second person that brought the Mike Benz up. I started listening to it yesterday, and then I got called away to do some shit, and I never got back to it. But from what I was hearing, it was very fucking interesting. You know what? Let's do this real quick, cause let me see something, because they said they're gonna be 5 minutes. Let me see. Let me see, where's it at? Because it was getting very interesting. Let me see.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
But we kept those relationships in order to run this pro-democracy regime change thing. So in 1948, when we established the secrecy doctrine that we now live under, and all these NGOs work under this cover effectively because of their sponsoring organizations,
I'm gonna double the
USAID
playback
or CIA
speed,
or
so
state.
I don't get in trouble.
And he called it the inauguration of organized political warfare. And what he said is, we need to create a covert apparatus to hide what we do from the rest of the world, to do secret political warfare on the low. And the problem is the American people are not going to like this. The American people do not understand the intricacies of international relations. They think there's always an easy political cure-all, and they do not understand. They think there's a fundamental difference between peace and war. And what he proposed is, and this is just 2 months before this would formally be given to the CIA to do. But at the time, what he said was, this worked gangbusters in Italy. We need to replicate this everywhere. We need to create a capacity to do black propaganda, to do economic sabotage, demolition. There's a whole list of what's authorized under NSC 10-2. And what he says is, the American people are not necessarily going to like this, and we're going to need to effectively hide what we do from them, because if they find out, then the rest of the world finds out. If we're trying to run an operation in Eurasia, and we report this in U.S. News, well, then any person in Eurasia who reads U.S. News now knows about it. And so that was authorized at the time with simultaneous with the Smith-Mundt Act, which, are you familiar with the Smith-Mundt Act?
Is that the 2011, 2012 thing where Obama allowed people to use propaganda against United States citizens?
Yeah, that was what was done then under Obama was the effective repeal of it. It was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. But the modernization got rid of the whole purpose of it, the firewall, because at the time the media and media control was seen as the linchpin crux of winning the Cold War, piping in pro-U.S. Media influence so that because everything moved after World War II from kinetic warfare and military occupation. We used to militarily occupy the Philippines, for example, after we won the Spanish-American War. But that was banned under international law, territorial acquisition by military force in 1948. So we had to win elections, and we had to influence the.
We'll come
Thank
back
you very
to
much,
it.
Mr.
It's a little
Chairman.
15-minute
I
clip,
was
but
here
we'll come back
earlier
to
in the
it.
hearing, and then we had votes, and I had a meeting to go to, but I'm glad to be back, although I seem to be walked into some of what seems to me was a surreal conversation. Mr. Yo, it's good to see you again, having served with you and our other witnesses. Thank you for your service. Mr. Yo, like you and I, we've had debates with our opponents in the past, and I always think that's good. But I have a line that I like to use when I think a person on the other side is straying from the facts. I say, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And now that I guess we have alternative facts, it doesn't matter. But I want to talk about this part of this discussion deals with oversight. And Article 1 of the Constitution gives not only us the purse strings, part of the purse string, but oversight. And I must say, in 20 years that I've been around here, I don't think that we do oversight as well as we should. And I have a real problem with this whole issue of hiring someone, or he's not hired, but to take over the role of what is this committee's jurisdiction and every other committee in Congress to do proper oversight, and then point the finger somewhere else, I think is an abdication of our role. Not only here in this effort, but also in advise and consent over in the Senate. But let's talk about the USA freeze and I'm trying to understand where this administration is now coming with their policy and what I think is an illegal dismantling of the USAID, because we can make changes, we can make modifications, as we discussed earlier this morning, and we should. And this administration should put its imprimatur on its own foreign policy, as every administration does, whether I agree or not. But the oversight is our responsibility, not the executive branches. So let me ask you, in terms of China, which is our adversary, there's no clear strategy, it seems to me. The administration thus far is all over the place. Mr. Natasio, do you think the actions on the USAID freeze operations help us counter China and Russia?
I've said earlier that I believe our aid missions are one of our greatest strengths because they're in the country and 2/3 of them are from the country. The Chinese do not have an aid system. They're in the field. They have a highly centralized system. Everything's done in Beijing. They have no oversight over their programs.
So basically, it's used as a tool, USAID, to project U.S. smart power, soft power, whatever you want to call it, and our influence abroad, right?
That's right.
It's not altruistic. It's in our national interests, right?
That's right.
Oh, and by the way, it benefits American farmers by a tune of about $2 billion, right, in purchase of American agricultural products, right?
That is correct.
In farm country, and I represent a significant farm district. I want to focus on Ukraine for a moment. USA allocated over $30 billion. The fund supported projects to stabilize the energy grid, as mentioned earlier, government efficiency programs, civil society groups.
His pockets have been greased.
These efforts have bolstered and strengthened Ukrainian society in the last 3 years especially, and the resolve to fight back against Russian aggression. Russia, Mr. Yoho, is our adversary. Would you not agree?
Agreed.
And so for those who claim over the past 2 years to care about oversight on how the money is spent on USAID staff, how do you think these investments in civil society and development-based projects have helped to bolster Ukraine's fight against the Russian invasion, the hostile invasion?
You know, there is a need on the humanitarian side with the food programs and things like that, health, medical, those kind of things. But I question the role of NATO. You know, why is NATO not there stronger than we are?
Well, I'll give you some numbers, and we can do that offside. But really, when you add
That's a good question.
support and NATO support, it's pretty close to what we've done when you look at the totality of the numbers. Let me go to another place, Armenia.
Oh, you want to keep on that?
I've worked with over the years. USAID's played a significant role in helping. Armenia's wanting to turn to the West. Russia has abdicated its role under the treaty and sided with Azerbaijan. Mr. Datussil, have you?
Honestly, his questioning, this guy here, his questioning actually kind of validates what the chick was saying before they went to break. She said that USAID is doing SOPs for the military. And that's all his questions are, is everything that the military, that NATO's supposed to be doing, that maybe the UN should be a part of, USAID's a part of that? It sounds like USAID is a part of the military-industrial complex.
Were you involved with the support for Armenia when they found out, or Mr. Yoho, you care to comment about the precarious position they're in right now?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Trying to remember if we had an aid mission there. It was not huge, but the relationship between Azerbaijan and Armenia, which is the problem you're talking about,
right,
was stable then.
It's not now.
It's not now. And the Russians are deeply involved, and the Iranians. In fact, the Iranians almost went to war with Azerbaijan. In fact, I was told by one of our professors that they had actually started to put in military bridges from Iran into Azerbaijan. This is about eight or 9 months ago, and they're worried about a Middle Eastern war over it, because then Russia would have been drawn in, and Turkey would have been a catastrophe. I don't know what caused them to pull back, but they did.
Well, my time's expired, but more to be discussed, and thank you for your testimonies today.
Chair now recognizes Representative Issa.
Thank you. And I want to thank Mr. Lawler for trading places with me and allowing me to go a little early. You know, this has been interesting because I've been in and out of here, but I've kept it on the television if I've had to be out.
You think they got Ukraine pins for all of their jackets, or they make a conscious effort every day to put it on?
Because I think we agree on the following. At least some of the programs that each of you have seen when you've gotten into it are wasteful, unnecessary, and or would be better reprogrammed to some other use. Can we all agree on that? So are we dealing more with a stylistic complaint here today that this administration has said, stop, go back to baseline, justify your programs, and we'll restart, versus, as Andrew did, you said 80 programs were stopped in a very short period of time, and that money was reprogrammed to better use. Many of the programs that were talked about here, and some of them did turn out to be State Department, so let's assume for a moment that we're really talking about state and USAID, and for that matter, maybe the XM Bank, maybe a lot of places that disperse our funds, have been used for purposes that the new administration rightfully objects to and has the power or the desire to reprogram. Can we all agree that that's the case? So now I'm going to ask a couple of questions. One, earlier there was this question that I objected to based on my 25 years of experience here, and it was, why did we need a special IG for Afghanistan, and why did we need a special IG for Iraq? And I'm going to answer that for you folks. And if any of you really disagree, since the answer came from there, as though we didn't need it, these were unique, high-expense areas, like Ukraine is today, in which it was very difficult to audit, and certainly difficult for one IG that does the whole State Department to do so. Can we all agree that that was the reason, the prompting of the special IGs? Okay.
That is funny.
I don't agree with you, but...
No, but that was the reason for prompting. You'd agree with that.
Yes.
So you disagreed that it made sense, even though those IGs found time and time again things and brought them to Congress so we could consider whether to change the programs. And I'm going to ask you, not rhetorically, but directly, because I believe we'll need special IGs from time to time in the future. Do you really believe that we would have gotten the same level of oversight if we'd simply had one IG sitting at the State Department rather than somebody who had a more direct mandate and less politically motivated, because those special IGs transcended
That's a good question.
administration after administration?
That's a good question.
We had 3 audits from 3 different inspectors, GAO, the special IG, and then the regular AID, on the same program at the same country at the same time. That is nuts.
Okay, so your point for us in the future, so we can do our job better, is if we have 2 IGs with overlapping, try to deconflict them so you only get one request from one of them. I agree with that. But I'm going to ask you a follow-up question in the limited time I have left. During the entire 4 years, because the other day we had this big question about IGs, 19 of them being dismissed and they're going to be replaced. During your time in Bush 2, in W. Bush, you had an IG and you had a second IG, but you didn't have an IG for the State Department for the entire period of time that Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. So if we had not had a special IG that transcended that, Hillary Clinton would have had 4 years with no IG looking at what was going on in a very expensive, 2 expensive combat zones. Isn't that true?
You're correct, but we also didn't have an IG, I have to say this, for state during the Bush administration. And I'm not criticizing my own president, but State Department does not like IGs.
During the last administration, I left Congress for 2 years to work for President Trump and was heading the Trade Development Agency. So I've been on your side of the fence advocating for the good work that an agency can do. But my question to all of you is, don't we need more oversight so we don't have each administration coming in and saying, halt, we need to look at this? And wouldn't it have been better if, before we got to this point, Congress had been more aware sooner of the need for the kinds of changes we're hearing about here today?
I have to agree 100% with you. You can get it report after report after report, but if you do not act on it, the report's worthless.
Okay. I want to thank all of you, and again, thank my colleague from New York, and yield back.
Thank you, Representative Issa. Chair now recognizes Representative Lawler.
Thank you, Chairman. How many of you use some form of online banking and get email notices for your credit card statements? Have you ever had the moment where you get the email notice, you open it, you look and go, oh my God, what did I spend this month? And then you go check the online portal and you look and you see the itemization, you go, oh wow, I didn't realize that. That's what's happened here.
I'm watching on
Very
AP
simply.
News.
USAID has an important mission. And unfortunately, they have gone askew on that mission. PEPFAR is a program that I have been in strong support of, and 60% of the program is administered by USAID. It is a vital program. Humanitarian assistance, and when you think humanitarian assistance, you think food, you think shelter, you think supplies, medical supplies, you think testing for different types of diseases. Unfortunately, as we peel back the onion here, we're finding more and more that billions of dollars of taxpayer money are being misappropriated. And so what Secretary Rubio has done by putting a 90-day freeze in place per President Trump's executive orders is to have a comprehensive review. Now, during that review, they have granted a waiver for life-saving treatment and care and humanitarian assistance, inclusive of PEPFAR and food. And that's what they should do. Now, some of my Democratic colleagues will say, under what authority are they doing this? Well, Section 7063 of the 2024 appropriations gave the Secretary the authority to do this. And I would remind my colleagues that under the Clinton administration, Madeleine Albright tried to bring USAID under the control of the State Department. So this is not some new concept, and certainly USAID wouldn't have been in the crosshairs as much as it has been had the people working there abided by the order issued by the Secretary of State. Instead, they thought their judgment should be substituted, and that, in fact, they, as bureaucrats, unelected, have more authority than the elected president, Congress, or the confirmed Secretary of State. Now, when it comes to oversight,
Now, that's another thing that you don't hear Democrats saying is that USAID, right, was under the assumption that they operate outside of the United States judicial system, the United States political system, period. They're an independent agency, independent of United States overreach. Or, not overreach, what's the word? I know what I'm talking about, goddammit. Similar to like the FBI or something like that. That could also be an example of absolute power corrupting, absolutely. If you're a government agency or government entity, let's say FBI, I'm at CIA, a government agency, a government entity that feels as though they're not beholden to the government that they claim to uphold or operate for, that's a fucking issue. That's a fucking issue. And that's what USAID thought they were. That they were a United States agency that was independent of United States oversight.
we had Samantha Powell in here last Congress. We asked her numerous questions. We asked her for information. And as is often the case, when Congress, as a co-equal branch, asks for information, the executive tries to stymie that.
Yeah, I'm probably behind. Yeah, I am behind.
And because it was a Republican-controlled House, the Democratic White House, and Democrat-controlled USAID did not want to cooperate with these investigations and requests for legitimate information. And so, frankly, in 3 to 4 weeks, DOGE has gotten more information than Congress ever could because the executive oftentimes refuses to cooperate. And for those saying there's no transparency here, how is it not transparent? You're hearing about it. It's being released. It's being reported upon. This isn't happening in the middle of the night. Now, one of the things we've uncovered is the fact that a congressionally appropriated fund, the Nita Lowey Middle East Partnership for Peace Act, and Nita Lowey being one of my predecessors,
No, he ain't shit.
was a $250 million fund controlled by USAID. And it was set up for the purpose of cultural dialogue. And USAID, under this program, gave $3 million to tomorrow's youth. And the head of that has produced numerous anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli songs as part of this cultural dialogue. Now, given what has happened in the Middle East and given what happened on October 7th, do any of you actually believe that is a good use of American taxpayer dollars to promote anti-Semitic rap songs in the Middle East?
Those are criminal activities that need to stop.
I would add that any institution, university or otherwise, that is engaged in anti-Semitic behavior or stopped it on their campuses should be disqualified from getting any kind of foreign aid.
I agree too.
Damn, my man, even my man Andrew
That's what
agree.
we're talking about, and that's what we're dealing
Even
with.
my
And
man
for those
Andrew
saying,
agree.
where is Congress? We're here. We're having this hearing. We're providing this oversight. That is our role, but it is the role of the executive to manage the agencies and departments, and that is exactly what they are doing. And frankly, they have provided more information to Congress in the last few weeks than Congress ever got under the Biden administration. And the Biden administration is the one that approved that $3 million to go to an anti-Semitic rap artist to promote Jewish hatred.
Jihadi John.
That is what we're talking about. That is why the 90-day pause was put in place, and that is why this
Jihadi John
nonsense
putting out
needs
mixtapes.
to end. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Good points.
Thank you, Representative Lawler. Representative Jackson was hoping, he was advocating for you to get another 5 to 10 minutes. But I told him we have to move on to Representative McKenzie, our final person for questions. You are now recognized.
Oh, he did? When did he do that?
And I appreciate the hearing that we're having today because it relates to some of the biggest challenges that our country faces today. And first is we have an economic crisis in this country. Millions of Americans are still struggling to make ends meet. We have $36 trillion of debt.
Hold on. King Doe come in and say 2.3 million has been used for studying cocaine effects on beagles and 875,000 studying cocaine effects on quails, mating lots of cocaine studies. That's crazy. I think I know what Hunter was in charge of. Like I got to look that up and see if that's the thing. However, as crazy as that shit sounds that he put up there, that is 1,000% a possibility. That is 1,000% a possibility where grant money went to. Right? I'm not saying he wrong, because he probably 100% right what he put up here. I don't know, but it sounds so fucking absurd. It's so absurd, it's fantastic. And the crazy part is that that's the type of money they were putting out to grants. So I wouldn't even put it past the United States government to give those fucking grants out. That shit is wild what you're reading. You're reading that right now, and I guarantee all of y'all are like, that's crazy. Did they really do that? Ain't no way they fucking gave money out for shit like that. It's fucking very possible.
We have a $1.8 trillion deficit. And so it is incumbent upon us as members of Congress to scrutinize every tax dollar that is spent. So I'm a little surprised when some of our colleagues here today want to diminish the fact that we are talking about $40 billion. It's still $40 billion of taxpayer money that we are talking about.
That's a fantastic question.
And so USAID does provide, in some cases, very good services.
Life-changing money,
advance
Smith.
our interests around the world and help others. And that's something that we want to maybe continue. But that should come before Congress. At the same time, we have seen illegal immigration devastate our country. That is the other big challenge that
I did hear one of those things where they said it was a study on what cocaine did to rats. And some rats preferred the cocaine over pussy.
believe our country is facing. We have had a wide open southern border where the Biden administration took their executive powers and used them to not build a border wall. There were funds that were appropriated through Congress to build a border wall. I was down on the southern border. I saw the equipment laying by the side of the border, not being built. And so Mexican drug cartels were bringing in weapons and human trafficking and drugs right across our border, and there was nothing being done about it. So those are two of the biggest challenges that we face. We've heard about the absolute waste that is going on in USAID today. Total waste of taxpayer dollars, adding to our debt and to our deficit. At the same time, we have seen USAID has actually made some kind of attempt to stem illegal immigration, but it seems to have totally failed. And so I want to bring up, in 2021, USAID announced Central America Local, a 5-year, $300 million initiative to pay local organizations in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to address the, quote, root causes of migration. The GAO found that this initiative did not require training of staff to detect and reduce fraud risks because USAID did not actually regulate the training of agency-wide individuals. So we have money that is going to this cause. At the same time, we have people who in this chamber still want to fight us on building a border wall and border security. In fact, many of the members that were part of the longest shutdown in U.S. government history over a border wall are still here. And we still hear about them saying that they may potentially shut down the government. So I would like to ask the members of our panel today if they have thoughts on, is the USAID initiative to stem the root causes of migration the right way to go, or is building a border wall the right way to go?
How about leaving it up to Border Patrol?
I've written on this, and
how about leaving it up to the Department of Homeland Security?
The amount of money that we spend, no matter how much, has absolutely no impact on migration. It's having a...
Let me say that without them in the background. How about we leave that up to the United States Border Patrol and the Department of Homeland Security and not USAID? Why is USAID have anything to do with border security? That shouldn't be a fucking thing.
Firmly sealed, enclosed border. That's what the solution is.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that response, and I agree with you. And so I look forward to, as we move through this Congress, providing funding for a border wall that will secure our country. And also, I look forward to scrutinizing every single dollar of the billions that are going out through USAID for absolute waste and programs which are not effective or efficient in actually achieving their mission. And so that is the prerogative of Congress.
What's up,
but
man? What's up, gobbledygook?
The reason that we are having this hearing today is because of the executive branch shining a light on all of this waste and inefficiency. And so we can work in collaboration with an administration to provide for our American citizens safety, security, actually protecting and spending taxpayer dollars in an efficient and effective fashion, not putting our children and grandchildren in trillions of dollars of debt. I believe that we can do all of that, and we are going to do that this Congress and with this administration. So with that, I will yield back my time to the chairman, but I want to thank all of our panelists and everybody for today's hearing.
Thank the representative from Pennsylvania. I'm now going to recognize Representative Jackson for any closing remarks that you may have.
I'd like to thank you so much, Chairman Mast. On behalf of Ranking Member Meeks, I'd like to say very much thank you for the time that you all have spent with us today, your candidness, your forthright, and the amount of time and sacrifice that you've made in not making your bodies more comfortable earlier in the program. So continued success, and I know we have many things in common. We will have continued success together, and we're going to continue to work for the best outcome for our nation, our great people. With that, I yield back, Chairman Mast. Great to work alongside you, sir.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. I also thank the witnesses for their testimony on this important topic.
Representative Mast, he could snap your neck with no problem.
President Trump, in my opinion, is absolutely making America immeasurably stronger by gutting USAID and gutting the State Department forthcoming. He is making it clear that there is no more stupid social engineering programs that will continue. No more comic books for $50,000 or $50,000 trans operas. No more $800,000 job fairs in Bangladesh for trans individuals, specifically in a country where the average monthly wage is $220. These things come to an end. Asking the questions, are Americans better because that dollar came out of their pocket and went to these programs or not? That is a bar that we have to hold ourselves to. Should somebody working today have kept those dollars in their pocket instead of sending their dollars to programs like those? There's not a more important question that we could ask. Are President Trump and Secretary Rubio and Elon Musk and his team, are they eliminating waste? Absolutely yes. Are they making the system accountable where the buck stops with Secretary Rubio? Yes. Secretary Rubio is, in fact, encouraging important life-saving programs to continue. America is significantly stronger every minute the wasteful programs are ended, and we are weakened every minute that they are allowed to continue. We gave the Biden administration and my Democrat colleagues the chance to work on oversight. One easy example that I worked on personally would be the expansion of atheism in Nepal with $500,000 grants. My colleagues played the game, admit nothing, deny and lie about all of it, and make counter accusations.
You ain't said not one lie,
even
though.
with all of the documents laid directly in front of them. That's what took place. We tried. They wouldn't do it. I know Americans are not stupid. They know there is no value for them in a $100,000 DEI survey in Ghana. They know that there's not value for them spending $520 million to pay ESG consultants to teach people in Africa about climate change.
Yeah,
also,
you got a point, Smith.
What is extremely telling to all of us is the amount of grant recipients who are not asking for waivers.
What's it called?
They know that the gig is up.
I think this is it.
And do not even want to try
right now
and justify what it is that they had been doing, the way that they were grifting off of Americans who are going to work each and every day.
So what's it called?
What is not surprising is that my colleagues
World Government
have tried to lie to American people, saying that people are dying. We've heard that argument before again and again. My colleagues have said about 10 times, at least in this hearing, that
government exists.
Streamed 8 hours ago. Is this what you're talking about right here? You know they let him talk that long.
Our conversation in three directions. The first is we're going to talk about DOGE, then we're going to move to AI, and then finally we're going to conclude with boring cities.
Great.
And I'd like to start off by maybe talking about how consequential you are for human history. I think no single person has had such an impact on space, on
just got your message,
communication,
Rudy. I seen it.
on artificial
You're right, though.
intelligence,
It's
on
expensive as shit to
transport,
live around there.
and the transition to green energy. And
they all
you know,
live in
there was
that
always a
area.
trend. There were deniers or critics at first, then naysayers, and then
$1
supporters.
million homes at minimum.
And typically people always start by saying, you know, he overpromises and he won't deliver. Then they finally see the trend and the trajectory and they turn out to be supporters. Do you think we'll see that in the government efficiency space? Like people are going to really see the impact very quickly and transition to becoming supporters?
Well, yes. First of all, I think we've got quite a lot of support from at least
Y'all
the
see who
American
he
public,
talking
and I think
to,
from
right?
maybe around the world.
Y'all see who he talking
the
to,
public
right?
is polled on sort of improving government efficiency. In fact, it is, I believe, the highest polling single issue, meaning that it is something that appeals to voters from, you know, of all types. And I think improving government efficiency, I think, was like almost 70% support, so quite a lot, basically, more than any other issue. So
The World Government Summit, is that mostly the UAE that I see over there? Saudi Arabia? My question.
I think the people are very supportive. Obviously, there's certain elements of the bureaucracy that are not supportive because we are moving them from the government sector to the private sector. So really, at a high level, this is kind of like we're moving people from low to sometimes negative productivity roles in the government sector to higher productivity roles in the private sector.
Oh yeah, they got, yeah.
And the net
I agree
effect
with
of
you.
that will be an increase in the output of useful goods and services,
The amount of
which
money that's in
increases
Crystal
the
City, Virginia and
standard
stuff.
of living and well-being of the average American.
And you usually have one key target that you aim to achieve in every single endeavor that you have. So SpaceX is make humanity a multiplanetary species. With Tesla, it's usher in an era of sustainable travel. What is the one main goal for government efficiency that you have for yourself? Is it saving money? Is it doing something else? What is the one main task that you have for yourself?
So there's, I guess, there's a few ways to describe it, but the actions end up being the same, which is like reducing the size of government and making the government much more accountable to the people, I think is going to lead to a better outcome for the people. What I've said is that we really have here rule of the
Josh said
bureaucracy
he's Lex Luthor.
as opposed to rule of the people, democracy. So
Constantly
in order,
Lex
we want to
Luthor
rule
more than
of
Bruce Wayne.
the people. And so what that means is reducing the size of the federal government, basically reducing regulation. There's a tremendous amount of over-regulation that's happened over time. And this is an inevitable consequence of a long period of prosperity, is that you're going to get more and more rules and regulations, more laws accumulate over time. And the normal forcing function for getting rid of rules and regulations is war. So it needs to be some kind of existential war, where you have to do a reset in order to avoid being defeated in a war. This is literally throughout history, it's been the main forcing function for clearing out an accumulation of laws and regulation. In the absence of that, every year you get more laws and regulations until eventually everything is illegal and nothing is permitted. And that's sort of the situation we have these days. So, the aspiration here is a reduction in regulation and reduction in government spending, such that the economy is able to grow faster. Maybe the economy can grow at 4 or 5% potentially, in terms of real useful goods and services output, and then government spending can be reduced.
So was he saying? Because at first it sounded like he was like, we should go to war to help fucking curb our deficit. It's almost like what it sound like. I want to give him the benefit. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and he's saying that generally, in order for us to curb our deficit and to bring revenue in or our GDP, we need to be at war. is what it sounds like he was actually trying to say, which would be in line with Eisenhower, beware the military-industrial complex. Because our economy is based on what? Debt and war. Especially for the last 20-something years, our economy's definitely been about war. So I think he's trying to circumvent, when he's saying this, we should circumvent, he look crazy as hell in this fucking freeze frame. It sounds like he's saying to circumvent the military-industrial complex and go into war, we need to just trim the fat. That's what it sounds like he's saying to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
By about 3 or 4% of the economy, about maybe $1 trillion or more. And the net effect of that would be no inflation from 2025 to 2026. So that would be quite remarkable.
Great reset.
And also, if the U.S. government is buying less debt, which I think will be the case, if the deficit drops from 2 trillion to 1 trillion, then there'll be 1 trillion less debt that the government needs to buy, which will drop, of course, the interest rates to drop significantly. And that means people's mortgage payments, car payments, credit card payments, student loans, whatever debt they have, their debt payments will be less. So I think this is something that will benefit the average American. I think some of the things we're doing also will be hopefully helpful to other countries, because with the new administration, there's less interest in interfering with the affairs of other countries. I think there's the times the United States has been kind of pushy in international affairs, which may resonate with a number of members of the audience. And I think we should, in general, leave other countries to their own business. And basically, America should mind its own business,
He's right.
Rather than push for regime
He's right.
change all over the place. So,
mind our own fucking business.
This is probably a good thing for other countries too.
So instead of waiting for a war to happen, you went to war against the bureaucracy in the government.
Yes, we're essentially just we're with
get it together. Come on, today, Junior. Today, Junior.
And direction of President Trump, we are reducing the size of the bureaucracy, getting rid of excess regulatory regulations, and there's also so many agencies and regulatory authorities that they actually step on each other's feet. It's kind of like having a sports game where there are too many referees on the field, like more referees than players at times. Now that would be a silly game, if the players can't pass the ball without hitting a referee, But it's kind of getting to that point in the U.S. So there's roughly 450 federal agencies of one kind or another.
Did he forget to take the tape off his new T-shirt?
That's almost an average of 2 agencies per year since the formation of the United States. So, I mean, how many agencies do you really need to run a country? I'm 99, not 450, that's for sure. So.
And how do you guarantee that all the incredible achievements that you aim to have in terms of savings, in terms of impacting the lives of the American people, are not going to be reversed in 4 years? Typically, the cycle gets reversed every 4 years. Do you think it's going to be so impactful that it won't be reversed? Is there any ways that you can ensure that the progress is going to be continuous?
Well, I think we do need to delete entire agencies as opposed to leave part of them behind. Because if you leave part of them behind, it's easy. It's kind of like leaving a weed. If you don't remove the roots of the weed, then it's easy for the weed to grow back. But if you remove the roots of the weed, it doesn't stop weeds from ever growing back, but it makes it harder. So we have to really delete entire agencies, many of them. That's not to say there won't be an increase over time of bureaucracy in some new administration, but it'll be from a much lower baseline. So it's a step in the right direction. I think the overarching goal here is to lay the foundation for prosperity that will last many decades, maybe centuries, and but it won't be forever. Nothing's forever. But I think we can strengthen the foundations of the United States substantially.
And what lessons can other governments learn from the U.S.? You say tech support on your shirt. Is that only technology, or is there other things? How do you approach efficiency?
Well, a shocking percentage of the problem, or maybe not shocking for those who know it, but a big percentage of the problem is improving the technology.
If you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button.
The U.S. government runs on a collection of thousands of computers, many of them antiquated, running very old software, and the computers don't talk to each other. So that's why tech support is kind of a real thing. In order to make the government more efficient, you have to improve the technology. You may have read about the example I used recently when President Trump was signing one of the DOGE executive orders of the difficulty of U.S. government workers retiring. Like the maximum retirement rate is $10,000 a month, and the reason for that is because the retirement is entirely paperwork right now. It's manually calculated paperwork that's put in an envelope and then taken down a mine shaft and stored in a mine. And then one of the things that affects the rate at which federal workers can retire is the speed of the elevator in a mine in Pennsylvania, which is bizarre because it should be digital, you know.
Hold on.
So then when we said, well, why isn't it digital? They said, well, we have the difficulty of U.S. government workers retiring. Like the maximum retirement rate is $10,000 a month. And the reason for that is because the retirement is entirely paperwork right now. It's manually calculated paperwork that's put in an envelope and then taken down a mine shaft and stored in a mine. And then one of the things that affects the rate at which federal workers can retire is the speed of the elevator in a mine in Pennsylvania, which is bizarre because it should be digital, you know. So then when we said, well, why isn't it digital? They said, well, we have had a digitization program going since 2014. So it's been 11 years. So then we asked, well, so how much progress have you made? And they said, B. You mean you're giving yourself a grade of B? No, we're on the letter B. So we're like, okay, we're going to need to really provide some tech support here.
So the reason I rewinded that, because yesterday HJ he was talking about that, right? And I tended to agree with HJ, like, you know, there's no way that they're what's the word? There's no way that they're doing all this shit by hand manually, and you really got to go to Iron Mine or Iron Mountain and process somebody's retirement. That's kind of what it still sounds like Elon is saying, is that no, it's not just for storage. This is the process of someone's retirement. They fill out their paperwork, and then it has to be taken to Iron Mountain to be processed. We need to do a deep dive on that shit.
Like otherwise, literally, people can't even retire. Like even if they want to, it's pretty bad. You know, there's a lot of software systems that need to be updated and fixed. In some cases, deleted. A lot of things that should be automated. I mean, in terms of the number of, say, U.S. citizens that are operating the mine, it's about 1,000 people are working on this mine, where the papers are stored. But they should ideally be working on something else. They should be working on producing goods and services that are of much higher value to the public, to the, you know. So I mean, really, even if somebody just grew tomatoes in their garden and sold them at the farmer's market, that would be more useful than carrying.
So that's actually what he's saying, is that shit has to manually be entered.
Yeah, safe to say.
In the fucking
so a lot of the stuff is like that, you know.
Limestone mine.
It's not like any one thing is particularly difficult, but there are like 10,000 things that need to be improved. Yeah.
So it's efficiency through innovation rather than efficiency through austerity and cost cutting specifically, right? So you're trying to do both at the same time, maybe focus more on tech support than cutting costs?
Well, by improving the technology, the costs do reduce. So, you know, it's very expensive to have 1,000 people operate a mine with doing paper retirement. whereas that really should just be digitized and be a computer that's with the information stored in the cloud, and it's very straightforward and low cost. So automation, will help there a lot. And then, but like a lot of things just really shouldn't exist. They're kind of vestigial. We've a lot of attention's been on the sort of USAID, for example. When we looked at a lot of those programs, we're like, we should look, why does this actually exist? Is there really a need for it? There's like National Endowment for Democracy, but I'm like, okay, well, how much democracy have they achieved lately? I don't know, not much. So, the picture they have on their website is a picture of Reagan and Gorbachev. That's been a while, that was like the 80s. So it's not like, I'm obviously not opposed to democracy, or, there's all these things that get funded, but we're like, well, why does this need taxpayer money? It doesn't seem like it does. So, there's a lot of sort of pushing DEI worldwide that, this obviously the Trump administration doesn't agree with, and we want to terminate that stuff, which we are. Make sure the schools focus on improving basic education of kids. As President Trump said, I think yesterday, maybe today, the United States is currently ranked 40th out of 40 in the OECD for education, which is pretty bad. You can't, but in terms of spending, the United States is spending a tremendous amount per student, but achieving very weak results. So, that's just a case where, okay, we need to spend less money and get better results. It's like, a lot of it, you can think of it sort of like, it's like, in a way, it's like a big company, like a big corporation, American Incorporated. And, just like with Twitter, there was a lot of stuff that was being done that was unnecessary. In the case of Twitter, we reduced the staff by 80%, but at the same time improved the functionality and capabilities of the site dramatically, and accomplished more in a year than they previously accomplished in 5 years. So it's like a corporate turnaround, but at a much larger scale. We are giving generous, exit packages. Like, if people retire, they get paid all the way through September. They can go on vacation, they can get a second job, they can do whatever they want. And we can't actually pay them any more than through September, because that's the congressional appropriation is only through the end of the government financial year, which ends in September. So, so I think there'll be like some disruption, but at the end of the day, we'll have people move from, like I said, from low to negative productivity roles to, in the government sector, to higher productivity roles in the private sector.
Out there complaining, looking like James
to
Brown.
artificial intelligence, and I'm sure you've been seeing what DeepSeek has done, and all the claimed achievements that they've had. I know that we've been speaking for a while about Grok 3, and that Grok 3 is going to be a true disruptor in the AI space. When are we going to see that? And what capabilities can...
I actually agree with that, King. I think we need to start, nothing wrong with, immigrants wanting to come here and do STEM and IT and stuff, but at the same time, we need to start training up our citizens in IT. And I think that Vivek had a point at one point where he was saying we just being fucking lazy and we don't want to learn the job, and it's just easier for them to hire abroad, especially when it comes to monetary compensation.
What can we expect from Grok 3?
Well, Grok 3 has very, very powerful reasoning.
That's also true. That is also true. If they got access to it, that ain't hacking. If you gave them the fucking password, that ain't hacking. A little social engineering, but it ain't hacking. So, anyway, keep it going.
Capabilities. In the tests that we've done thus far, Grok 3 is outperforming anything that's been released that we're aware of. So that's a good sign. Yeah, it's in fact, at times I think Grok 3 is kind of scary smart. You're like, wow, this thing's smart. It's kind of scary. Grok 3 is scary. It's like, wow, this thing's, it comes up with solutions that you didn't even think were, like you wouldn't even anticipate, not obvious solutions. So Grok 3 was trained with the most amount of compute, and I think very efficiently trained. Also notably, Grok 3 was trained on a lot of synthetic data. So, and then it goes back and forth through the data and tries to achieve logical consistency. So if it's got data that is wrong, it'll actually reflect upon that and remove the data that is wrong, that does not concord with reality. So its base reasoning is very good. In fact, even without fine tuning, Grok 3, the base model, is better than Grok 2. So we're really in the final stages of polishing Grok 3. Probably it gets released in about a week or two. So pretty soon. I don't want to be hasty in the release because a lot of the final polish is necessary for a great user experience. So in some ways you can think of it like a house. That last 5% where you finish the drywall and do the painting and the trimming, even though it's not much work, it transforms the house. Yeah. So it's that. Just want to make sure that last 5% is done really well, and it's a week, maybe 2 weeks. I think it'll be very good, and I think this might be. We think it'll be better than anything else, and then maybe this might be the last time that any AI is better than Grok.
Looking forward to it. Everyone's, I think, excited about it. So I just want to touch upon a topic that was quoted in the media. You offered, I think they said a group that was led by you offered $97 billion for acquiring OpenAI.
It would take, a little round numbers.
So I was personally involved in the meeting that you and Sam hosted in 2017 in LA, if you remember. And at that point of time, you were the single largest shareholder. I think you contributed $50 million to the company. So it must hurt.
I don't have any shares, actually. I have no shares in OpenAI.
But at that time, it was a non-profit, right? And it must hurt that you need to pay $97 billion for something that you paid $50 million for in the past.
Yeah.
But I have a
yes. Fate loves irony.
So I have a specific question here. Can you actually build a company like OpenAI and take it to the scale that you want to take as a non-profit? Is it possible that you build a company that requires billions of dollars in compute capabilities to build these models while being a non-profit? Or was it wishful thinking in the beginning and then you guys parted ways because it couldn't work?
Well, I mean, I think the evidence is there in that OpenAI has gotten this far while having at least a sort of
you gotta love that language barrier. Oh my gosh, yo, it takes patience sometimes.
Completely delete the nonprofit, and that seems really going too far. I provided all of the funding for OpenAI in the beginning for the first almost 50 million.
And see, I would, I hear what King Doe was saying, but I also would concede the Mike has bad knees, considering he retired from the government, right? You retired from the military, right, Mike? He retired from the government, so he knows the processes. He says OPM still processes retirement paperwork using paper. It's not digital. So Elon is mostly correct.
$1 million for nothing as a nonprofit. And it was meant to be open source. And so, I think this is analogous to, like, if you pay if you fund a nonprofit to preserve the Amazon rainforest, but instead they turn into a lumber company and chop down the trees and sell them for wood, you'd be like, wait a second, that's the exact opposite of what I donated the money for. So OpenAI is meant to be open source, nonprofit, and now it is closed. They changed the name to Closed for Maximum Profit AI. Closed for Voracious Profit. I mean, they're like, whoa. Are they after money next level? So why does this change need to occur?
You said that Grok 3, hopefully in 2 weeks, is going to be the most powerful model yet. I know that you've been at the forefront of many technologies. Where do you think the biggest economic returns of these models are going to come from? Because currently we're spending billions, and I think you mentioned this before, it's like the gambler syndrome. We're going and spending billions and hoping to pull out a profit at the end of the day.
Damn.
Where do you think the biggest impact in terms of returns are going to be?
Well, I think once you have humanoid robots and deep intelligence, you basically have quasi-infinite products and services available. So with Tesla building the most advanced humanoid robot, then those humanoid robots can be directed by deep intelligence at the data center level. You can say you can produce any product, provide any service. There's really no limit to the economy at that point. You can make anything, provided, like I said, so I'm not sure at that point will money even be meaningful. I don't know. It might not be. Because the economic output is productivity per capita times how many people do you have. If in the form of humanoid robots you have no meaningful limit on the number of robots, and the robots can basically do anything, then you'll have a sort of a universal high income situation. Anyone will be able to have.
Yo, Elon is Skynet. I've said this before. Elon is Skynet.
Scarcity, like a particular piece of art or something like that. But for any goods and services, they'll be available to everyone.
So you've been.
It's going to be a very different world, In fact, I recommend.
All right, Jalen,
that people read maybe the Ian Banks' The Culture books for a frame of reference.
All right, bro. All right, though. Matter of fact, we all about to head over to the Griff Report.
Money is really like a database.
If you want to hear the rest of this, you can go to what is this? World Government Summit 2025, Day 3. That's at World Government Summit YouTube channel.
Have you watched the movie Idiocracy?
So
yes.
How do you guarantee that we don't end up in that world if we don't need money, if AI can think for us and do all these tasks, if as people, we're dependent on something else to run the society and everything around it? How do we not end up in that world?
Well, we don't end up in that world because they got Brondo, and Brondo has electrolytes. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. We headed over to the Griff Report. I would transport you guys over there, but that's on Kick and Kick only. So if you want to check out the Griff Report, it's kick.com/the Griff Report. Again, it's kick.com/the Griff Report. Anyway, guys, until next time, it's Ken and Hotep saying be blessed. Oh, yeah, don't forget, guys, I will not be doing the after party tonight. I have a concert to go to with the wife. So, again, until next time, it's Ken and Hotep saying be blessed, stay strapped, don't miss. Don't worry about tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow got enough problems of his own. Unless Elon releases Skynet. We holla at you.
So relax and take notes. Niggas need to wake up. Niggas need to relax and take notes. Niggas need to wake up. Niggas need to relax and take notes.